Good morning, friends. My name is Michelle, and I am one of the pastors here. And today, we are wrapping up a series that we've been in called Influencer. We've taken a look at the things that influence us, the outside things that influence us, as well as the things that should be influencing us. In the last couple of weeks, we've talked about how we can influence others. I mean, think about this. Raise your hand if you have looked at social media already this morning. Yeah. How about if you looked at social media before you went to bed last night? How about if you've ever looked at social media? All right, here we go. Social media influences us like nothing else. In fact, social media is so prevalent that there is actually a career path based on social media. And you know what those people are called? Influencers. Their whole purpose of their career, of their profession, is to influence us into what we should buy, where we should go, what we should experience. And I'll be honest with you, one of my favorite facets of influencers are the hospitality influencers. These are the people that are showing us how to create beautiful tablescapes. They're the ones who can make sourdough in a shape for every single season. Have you seen the people that make sourdough turkeys? They're amazing. They're the people who can pull off a beautiful meal, a beautiful tablescape, and host just like they're Martha Stewart on her TV show. And I love seeing the things they show us. I absolutely love it. But at the end of the day, their brand of hospitality that they're influencing us with is not really what hospitality is all about. Yes, those things are awesome. They're inviting, and they help, level the playing field when people come into our spaces. But they also put a bit of pressure on us. The pressure to be perfect, to create that perfect tablescape, to make sure that everything in our homes or whatever space we're entertaining in is perfect, down to making sure every single color on the table matches whatever our aesthetic is. And quite frankly, I don't know about you guys, but as much as I love watching hospitality influencers, they make me anxious because these are things I can never pull off. As an introvert, it's hard enough inviting people into my space, but then agonizing over whether the table is beautiful enough, whether my sourdough has the correct lines and crustiness to it or not, or the correct crumb that it's supposed to have. All those things, at the end of the day, while they're really cool, they're not what's going to affect the people who come into my space. So today, we're going to look at hospitality from a different perspective. We're going to look at hospitality from a biblical perspective. And when we talk about biblical hospitality, we're talking about this: hospitality equaling how we love strangers. Like I said, it's not about perfection or performance. Hospitality isn't a show. It's not about entertaining, but it is about embracing. It's about being available, being present, and being willing to invite people into our lives, our real lives, the mess, the chaos, all of it, even when it's inconvenient or downright uncomfortable. At its core, hospitality is a ministry. It's the ministry of availability. It's the willingness to say, come on, no matter who you are, where you come from, come on in. I'm here for you, ready and waiting. And when we're willing to do that, when we're willing to love on others, to serve on others, it truly changes things. We've been talking about influence. But there's another word for what we've been talking about. It's evangelism. And I know a lot of times when we hear that word, it's scary, right? For those of us who grew up in the 80s, we think about televangelist on TV. We think about the scary things we may have witnessed. For me, I think about Brother John, who would walk across the Oklahoma State University campus and yell not so nice things at people as we were walking to class. But evangelism isn't scary. Evangelism is what we're called to do. And every act of kindness, every word we speak in kindness, each day when we live our lives with integrity, we truly are evangelizing to others. We truly are living out the Great Commission. So I'm not really a TV movie person. In fact, if you've ever asked me if I've ever seen something, usually the answer is no. I pick TV shows for background noise. And a lot of times I'll pick them based on the music in the intro. And so in the last week, I stumbled across this TV show on Apple TV called Bad Sisters. Has anyone seen it? I'll be honest with you, this one, the name intrigued me because growing up, I was always dubbed the bad sister, and that's another sermon for another day. But this series, it's not really church appropriate, I'll be honest with you. It's about a group of sisters and how they hate one of their sister's husbands. And they're kind of plotting against him. And throughout the show, though, throughout this season, I actually got pulled into it. And I noticed there's a lot about hospitality in this show. You see, the husband of Grace, he wants everything perfect. He wants the tablescapes to be perfect, the meals to be set at a certain time. If people come over, his wife and daughter are going to dote on him and play the role of perfection. And because his life is based on this pretty picture of perfection, he can't stand the sister-in-laws because they're messy, they're loud, they're obnoxious, they fly by the seat of their pants. And it drives him crazy. But there's something else about the sisters that drives him crazy. Time and time again, the sisters show up. Whenever one of them needs something, they step into it. And let me tell you, these sisters are messy, all right? They get themselves in some stuff. But every time it happens, whether it's convenient or not, the sisters step into it. And they don't just do it with each other. Throughout the show, as it plays out, you see them step into the mess with the neighbor. You see them step into the mess with an insurance investigator who's trying to actually pin a murder on them. And yet, here they are, walking alongside these people, offering their homes, and more importantly, offering their hearts time and time again. And that's what hospitality does. That's what hospitality is. It's not always clean, and most of the time, it's not even convenient. And it's not always beautiful or bold. But at its core, at its very center, hospitality is powerful for both the giver and the recipient. In Hebrews chapter 13, we read, "Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without even knowing it." This letter to the Hebrews closes with practical instructions on Christian living, right? In the New Testament, what the writer is talking about is this idea of Philadelphia, brotherly love. It isn't just a suggestion of what you should do. It's not a suggestion just to occasionally be kind, make sure you say hi to the person as they walk by. It's a true calling for ongoing, unconditional love. You see, at this time, Christians were being persecuted. They were being separated and scattered. And this type of love was essential for their very survival. They had to welcome each other. They had to stick together and show kindness and love. And they had to care for their community, not just spiritually and emotionally, but physically as well. These were the days when they would invite strangers into their home. And this is what this verse continues to push toward. It encourages us to extend love beyond the church walls to everyone. In biblical times, hospitality wasn't just hosting a dinner. It wasn't just walking down the street with someone. It was literally going to the stranger and saying, I see you. Do you need a place to sleep? Do you need a meal? What is it I can do to help you? When it comes to influence, we have to see people as opportunities to reflect God's love and not interruptions to our daily life. The kindness we offer to a stranger, a refugee, a neighbor, or someone experiencing homelessness might be far more reaching than you and I will ever realize. And we have to understand this. Hospitality isn't just something that you and I do. It's something that God has done for us. You want proof? It's in John chapter 1, verse 14. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. We saw the glory with our own eyes. The one-of-a-kind glory, like Father, like Son, generous inside and out, true from start to finish. You see, God offered us hospitality when he stepped into our mess. When he said, I'm going to enter into the neighborhood with you. I'm going to walk alongside of you. He didn't just say, hey, you guys, come here, come to me. You, just come on, I'll wait, I'll stand here and wait. No, he came to us. And that's the ultimate act of hospitality. Today, we're going to take a look at hospitality. We're going to take a look at 3 things that hospitality does based on this verse from John. First of all, hospitality steps in. I'm going to repeat this from John chapter 1 again. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. Now, this translation is actually the Message translation of this scripture, and I'm using it on purpose because it just paints a clear picture of what God did. Think about this. God, creator of heaven and earth, maker of all things, he could have chosen to watch from afar what was going on with his children. He could have just passed on advice to us continually through prophets. Instead, he chose to get down and dirty and to enter into the neighborhood. He moved in, literally and figuratively. He stepped directly into our reality. And that's our invitation too. You know, we won't influence others toward Christ by shouting from a distance. We won't influence others for Christ if we only talk to the people in these seats with us on Sunday morning. Influencing through hospitality, influencing through love means we have to step in. We have to make space for people who are different than us, for the hurting, for the curious, and even for those people who are difficult. You know, in Matthew, we read, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. And in that same passage, Jesus is asked, who is my neighbor? And ultimately, his answer is this: yes, they're all your neighbor. Every single one is your neighbor. And hospitality starts right there. It's not about a space, but it's about a posture. You can't love people from a distance. Distance is what distorts. Proximity reveals. Proximity opens our eyes to what's truly going on. And hospitality fills a gap that distance gives us. Hospitality steps in. It steps into real lives, real stories, and real needs. Hospitality also steps out. Hospitality means stepping out of our own world. And like I said, distance creates distortion. If you want to see somebody for who they really are, you're going to have to get up close and personal. You're going to have to trade your criticisms for curiosity. There's a phrase that we often use. It's, I don't understand. And my daddy used to tell me, you not understanding isn't a me problem, it's a you problem. It's your job to ask questions. It's your job to walk alongside those people, to get to know them. In order for us to love others, we have to step out of our watchtowers and into the neighborhoods, into the community with God's people. It's easy to judge from a distance, but everything will change when you get close. I am very introverted. I know it doesn't seem like that, but my boys will tell you I'm not just an introvert, I'm a hermit. And my best friend Allie is here. She will tell you the same thing. And the hard thing about that when you're a pastor is you have to talk to people, a lot of people, and you have to engage. And when you're an introvert, it's draining. And the first thing I do after church is I go home and I lock myself in my room and I talk to no one. And at my previous church, I would preach 3 services. I would go from one campus, literally speed to the other, preach 2 more services. And my favorite thing to do at the end of the day was to be the last one out and lock the doors, because it gave me quiet time. It gave me space. And there was this one day, there was this lady, and she was just kind of hanging out. And every time I turned the corner, she was there. And I knew she probably wanted to talk to me. And I knew her a little bit. I had been told things about her. And to be honest with you, that had informed my, decisions about her. And I really wasn't in the mood to talk to her. And I had made this decision that, full disclosure, I was going to lie in church. I was just going to tell her I really needed to be somewhere. And, if she wanted to schedule an appointment, we could do that. But before I could say something to her, she looks at me and goes, "Hey, Pastor Michelle, how do I know God's real?" And I went, "I'm not getting out of this." She goes on to talk about how she listens to the sermons on Sunday, and she doesn't understand them. And she hears how we're told to love one another and accept one another. And that's all well and good, but no one will give her the time of day. And when she walks into the church, she feels worse about herself than when she walked in. And I'm sitting there wondering, okay, how? And so I simply asked her a question so I could gather my thoughts. I said, "Shelby, tell me your story. I don't know much about you. Can you tell me your story?" And she goes on to tell me a story that I never expected to come out of her mouth. And it's Shelby's story to tell and not mine. But let me tell you, this girl had defied the odds. I can tell you that she was diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer as an infant and was told she would never live. At 2 years old, they said, great, she will never walk or talk. And she was still there in front of me. Her teenage years and adult life had been rough. And yet here she was in the church, time and time again. Not only was Shelby entering into a place where she flat out had just told me made her feel bad, she bugged me week after week after week to serve. And I'll be honest with you, I said no because I didn't know her story. I just knew what people assumed about her. And so she finishes telling me her story. And I'll be honest with you, I was in tears. And she looks at me and she goes, okay, Pastor Michelle, answer my question. How do I know God is real? I said, child, I know God is real because you're right here in front of me right now. That's how I know God's real. You have lived through things most of us can't even imagine. And you're standing here in this sanctuary. She told me her story, and it wasn't what I was expecting. She told me her story, and it pulled me out of my comfort zone into a place that was messy, into a place that was inconvenient, but it was a place that Shelby needed. From that moment on, we started working with Shelby to figure out, okay, how is it we can provide her what she needed? She didn't understand the sermons because even though she was in her late 20s, she was kind of on a learning level of a middle schooler. So we inserted her into the middle school ministry as a volunteer. She got to do what she had been asking for weeks to do, to serve. And in doing so, she was able to hear things and lessons and sermons that she understood. I don't know now if Shelby believes there is a God or if God is real, but I know in that moment, God used hospitality. God used love to influence Shelby. And it wasn't easy, and it wasn't convenient. Hospitality costs something. It cost us our time, our energy, and our effort. Hospitality listens instead of fixes. It asks instead of assumes. And instead of saying, I know, hospitality says, tell me your story. And finally, hospitality steps toward. If we are going to serve others, if we're going to influence others through hospitality, we have to be willing to step toward them and to love them with an intentional presence. We've all heard the story of Mary and Martha, right? The two sisters are preparing for Jesus to visit. And Martha is so busy with the preparation that, she may not have even noticed when Jesus got there. But Mary sits at the feet of Jesus and she listens to his stories. She gives him her full attention. And when Martha complains, Jesus says, you're worried about many things, but only one is necessary. Mary has chosen what's better. See, when we step toward, we understand that serving others, that loving others isn't about impressing them. It's about connecting with them. Jesus wasn't looking for dinner from those sisters that night. He was looking for their presence. If we are going to allow ourselves to open our eyes to strangers, and the fact that we may be in the presence of angels, we have to be willing to be present. Because when we place ourselves at the feet of others, we are placing ourselves at the feet of Jesus by serving his children and loving on them. You know, Bob Goff, the author, he published his phone number in his book, Love Doves. And if you call that number, he will answer. He answers every single call. And he does it because he wants to make sure people understand someone is there for them. He understands that presence, whether it be on the opposite end of a phone line or in person, changes people. We have a high school boy who shows up almost every single Sunday and serves a group of second graders because he remembers the impact someone serving him had. If y'all haven't figured it out, I get emotional. Every Sunday in this church, we have people who show up to make coffee, to hand out bulletins, to sing, to make sure things are where they're supposed to be. Because they know that a warm cup of coffee, a smiling face, and a hug can be the difference whether a person turns their heart to Jesus or turns away. When we offer hospitality, we offer Jesus. There's this beautiful theological concept, and it's rooted in the Reformed tradition, and it's called coram Deo. And it means before the face of God. To live coram Deo is to live in a constant awareness that everything we do is done in God's presence, under his authority, and for his glory. When we live out coram Deo, our hospitality isn't a performance. It's purposeful. When we live coram Deo, we don't serve to impress. We serve because we're living out our faith under the gaze of a holy and loving God. Every meal we offer, every invitation we extend, every welcome we give, these become acts of worship and reflection of God's heart. It's discipleship, it's influence, and it's the way of Jesus. It's what this series has been about.